Right, so I am Crystal Weber, and you are here to hear about the new China payment portal that I am integrating into my curriculum website at Crystal Clear ESL. Welcome. And if you're here because you've been affected by the China policy change, then commiserations. I think that even if you weren't directly affected by a company closing down or announcing a closure, there will still be reverberations throughout the industry. So it's a rocky time for us all. I wanted to start out by talking a little bit about my story so far. I got into ESL quite early on because when I finished my undergrad degree in English back in Canada, I didn't really know what to do with it. So I combined it with my love of travel, and I set off for a couple of years to teach English to preschoolers and primary students in Japan. Indeed, I was teaching children at preschools that were babies of 6 months and couldn't even hold their heads up. So it was a really fun challenge. Another thing that happened while I was in Japan is I met my now husband, who is a German-Italian man. And so after my stint there, that sort of brought us over to Europe. And we ended up here in the UK, where I live in Hampshire. I decided to train again at university to get my QTS, that's qualified teacher status here, where I taught secondary school for about 5 years, English Lit and English language to college level as well. And then we decided to start a family. So we have 3 beautiful children and 2 dogs, and things got very full on. So I rolled it back. There's some things I don't agree with in terms of the British education system. And I took a career break. And when I was ready to come back, the online ESL industry was very up and coming. And so I jumped aboard on a part-time basis. That brought us up to the pandemic, where we were happily ticking along. And then my husband very abruptly lost his executive job down to the pandemic. You know how I think a lot of companies, bigger corporations, used it as a bit of an excuse. But that was a real blow for my family, because we had gone from him being pretty well the sole bread maker and me bringing in some fun money to my business suddenly needing to be the bread and butter of the household in a very expensive area of England. So I upped my hours. I was teaching 12 classes back to back, 6 days a week, and still not clearing our mortgage. And I realized it just wasn't going to cut it. So I started freelancing slowly, building up freelance students, because obviously without the middleman, you can make far more money. And I decided as well to put my education and experience to use and start a curriculum business. So I launched my business officially in January of this year, January 2021. So it was about 7 months in when the China policy change happened, and in no way finished. My goals are very big for the business, and while it ticks along now and there is quite a lot of content at the lower level, I haven't yet met the full spectrum of where I want it to be. And then all of a sudden, bam, China policy change came around. So I woke up the morning after a lot of companies decided or announced they were going to close their doors. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, I've got curriculum, I've got a website, I've got a Stripe integration that will allow me to take payments from Chinese clients. And here are thousands, if not tens of thousands of other teachers, like in total shock and wondering how they're going to accomplish a freelance career when they don't know the ins and outs, or they're not comfortable, or it's very tricky. So I thought, why not repurpose the website to allow for a payment portal and hopefully be able to help some people, which is why you're here today. Here's a little bit of info about the curriculum itself. It has 7 levels with 12 units per level and 6 to 8 lessons per unit. So overall, when it's done, it will have over 650 lessons. When you think about that, each lesson is about 25 slides. It's in terms of the number of slides that I'm creating, and the amount of content I'm pushing out regularly is pretty insane. And it is just me too. So I'm doing all the admin, all the web work, everything. Right now there's material for up to level 4, which if you're working toward the CEFR levels, that's about an A2 to early B1 level. And my goal is to start level 5 early in the new year. So January 2022, I'll start it. So look for those higher levels in the first half of next year. The great thing about my curriculum at Crystal Clear ESL is it's very step-by-step by fine increments. So it's really easy for your students to learn and progress and build a really solid foundation, but it's also super easy for you to deliver as a teacher. And because you know that there are 600 plus lessons, if you're starting a student at beginner level, you have that real longevity of student retention that's possible for you. All the exercises, games, and assessments are built into the general curriculum. And I especially love the assessment portion because it offers a great opportunity to signpost progress to your clients, like parents, which is the best way to not only keep your students on board, but also to gain those student referrals. Because if they can see progress, then they're happy clients. It's really adaptable. So you are your own boss with this curriculum, not like when you worked for Wales or for VIP Kid, where you had to follow everything to the letter. You had to, go lesson 1 to lesson 2 to lesson 3 and so forth. You are the boss. So if you have a student, for example, that doesn't respond well to assessment, skip the assessment class. It's that easy. You can also integrate your own homework tasks. If you want to supplement with a video, for example, from YouTube, or a game from Kahoot, it's your oyster. The general curriculum is suitable from 3 years old through adults. So the really wonderful interactive phonics course that I offer is perfect for 3-year-olds because it's really got a lot of integrations in terms of dexterity and learning that interface, how the basic commands on a computer work or a tablet, but then it's also little games and fun, like drag this here or pop this picture open or whatever. And so it's a really fun way for them to build that phonics framework. And then I usually tell clients from level 3 unit 4 and above is suitable for teens and adults, because at that point I shift from using a lot of cartoon-based imagery to more graphic imagery. I try to refrain from discussing like, what did you do at school yesterday? Or what will you do at work tomorrow? And those sorts of things. So it is appropriate across the age spectrum. The curriculum allows delivery over any virtual platform that has a screen share option. So I personally love Zoom because it does allow great annotative functionality for both parties. And it also can be configured to give cursor sharing, which is something that a lot of the platforms don't do. I have been able to operate on Zoom basic version for like the last 2 years of freelancing without any issue. But if you need to upgrade to paid, it's not actually that pricey anyways. Level 1 in my curriculum, the phonics course I mentioned previously, is fully interactive in that the slides are on a platform where you drag and drop, you fill in the blanks, you can do all sorts. Whereas level 2 plus are static at the moment. So that just means that any interactive capabilities that they offer come through your choice of virtual classroom. So that would be like draw a line or write it in or type it in, those sorts of things that Zoom would allow. There are plans to convert the higher levels to that interactive platform, but right now my main priority is just content production because I want the teachers that are on with Crystal Clear ESL to have somewhere to go with their students. So as their students progress, they're going to need higher levels. So that's the focus there. Most of the lessons use the PPP pedagogy. So that just means you present material to the student, they practice it, they produce it back to you. And this is considered quite a good way to learn English, but it does integrate that method with lots of games and repetition. And, you know, the way it's structured is that they'll learn something in lesson 1, but they'll come back to it in lesson 4 so that it's constantly repeated and they're really ingraining that in their memories. It does target various learning styles. So whether your student is a kinesthetic learner and needs to be dragging and dropping, or a visual learner and needs to be reading something, that's all accounted for. And it does focus on all 4 skills: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. So the listening portions for the level 2 static are primarily dictations that the teacher would provide or dialogues. You can see sample lessons of the Crystal Clear ESL curriculum without needing to subscribe to anything on the website, www.esl-curriculum.com. Just look for where it says free trial lessons. And then there are also 2-week free trials available for every new registration, so you can really comb through the material. All right, coffee break. Okay, just to say what before I start this slide, that the general curriculum will be included for your use with any payment portal. So it's no extra cost. If your students are using the payment portal to pay you, then you automatically get use of the general curriculum. Okay. So policy 720, oi. There's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of speculation out there about what exactly it means. But I've got contacts in China and I've been keeping up with reputable sources. So I can tell you that at the moment, policy 720 targets companies, not individuals. So there's no law or even recommendation against tutoring on a one-to-one basis outside a major corporation. Why did it happen? Well, the Chinese government published that they want to shift the big billion-dollar companies, the sort of monolithic companies in China, away from education and more toward technology and sustainability. And the other reason that they said was because they have a declining birth rate and an aging population, and they need to find a way to encourage families to have more kids. And as it stands now, the culture is so exam focused that parents feel it necessary to compete and to pay thousands of dollars in equivalent in order to put their kids in tutoring numerous days a week at a really costly rate in order to get into just like any high school or any college or any university. It's so cutthroat there. So they wanted to take that expense away from parents to try to show them that they can afford to have a second or even third kid. They also claim to want to enhance the experience of childhood, because with this exam focused culture, the children just weren't having time to be children, which is honorable as that is. I'm sure it's only the surface of what's really going on. And I think that the primary background to the policy is to limit exposure to Western influence. So this is a factor linked to the point in the policy that they're no longer allowed to hire foreign teachers who reside outside China. Foreign teachers who reside in China are still okay because they can keep tabs on them. But I think they don't have enough perceived control over teachers from outside China, and so they're clamping it down. So is setting up as a freelancer a short-term solution? All I can say is maybe. It might be. I personally wouldn't turn around and go invest, thousands of dollars into setting yourself up. But thankfully, when done right, freelance businesses have low startup costs and low overheads, especially if you use a portal like mine. So, this policy 720 targets companies, but it's not to say that tomorrow they won't come out with policy, I don't know what's the date today, 820. Well, that's funny. And say that also one-to-one tutoring is banned. They very well could, but you have to think the supply of lessons in China has gone like that, but the demand is still there. They have a decades-long cultural mindset of the value of English tuition, and that's not going to change overnight. What it's going to do is drive it underground. So you're going to have to, if this came up, have a bit of a moral debate, speak with your clients and ask them, you know, you don't want to put them in harm's way. So have you done a risk assessment for yourself? And I don't know, it's a tricky one. We're not there, so it's not to worry. But let's say that the government did do a keyword ban.
Yes,
example.
a giraffe uses its long neck for what?
Hi, Benjamin.
A giraffe uses its long neck to
put him on mute. There we go. He's multitasking, obviously. Great feature. So, what was I just saying? Coffee break. Okay, so you've heard of the Great Chinese Firewall. It limits access for most Chinese people to big sites like Facebook, Google, anything to do with Google, and YouTube. They could technically use that firewall to ban keywords like English or ESL or English lessons, these sorts of things. So if that were to happen, again, it's like, how do we sidestep it? For one thing, tons and tons of Chinese families have VPNs, so they wouldn't be affected anyway. Your connections that you currently have or any referrals that come directly from those wouldn't be affected because you would have their contact details either by email or WeChat or other methods. So it's just being creative and riding the wave while we can, not getting, you know, and I think the big thing is diversifying. So important. So what are your current payment options when it comes to obtaining payments from clients in China? Some people have had success with PayPal and international bank transfers. I'm not saying that they don't work. I'm saying that they are purposely made difficult and that Chinese people, specifically with PayPal and even credit card payments, they're not a typical form of payment anymore in China. And so you're going to probably run up into obstacles in that your clients don't feel comfortable with them. Or it's like hoops they have to jump to accomplish it, right? The main method of payment these days in China are these. They're all loaded into their phones. They don't use credit cards. They don't, you know, I think more sort of internationally educated or worldly Chinese people will have credit cards, but your average Joe probably won't. And even those worldly people will have one stashed away in a drawer that they pretty much hardly ever use. So the idea is in bringing and onboarding new clients is to make the process simple for them, isn't it? You may even see some teacher marketplaces that will integrate a payment portal into their virtual classroom. And if you find a good one that stays online for the Chinese market, congratulations. I think they're a really good option. They'll offer you lots of support in terms of the legalities and terms and conditions and that sort of thing. Excuse me. But you may find yourself then lacking on the planning side. So they may, like OutSchool, for example, they may not provide any curriculum resources. So when you're transferring from a contracted job that's done everything for you, payments, terms and conditions, contracts, curriculum, literally all you had to do was like turn your computer on and teach. It's going to be a hard learning curve to develop a curriculum that sees progress in your students, targets a range of abilities, and doesn't cost you an extra hour for every hour of teaching. So even if you can manage the payment side, think of your hourly rate, right? Like if you're making double what you were making on Whales or VIP Kid, but you're spending double the time, it's just zeroing each other out, really. So what is your final option? Well, really, it's to get Stripe. Stripe allows you to accept payments with Alipay and WeChat Pay, which is in beta, which are the comfortable forms of currency that Chinese clients are used to and have to hand. And the only way to accept Alipay payments is to have a Stripe integration into a website. So if you have some tech knowledge and you're rather proficient in it, by all means, go off, set up a website. It doesn't need to be a complicated multi-page one. Integrate Stripe and off you go. But if you don't want to invest the time or money, I've done it for you. Okay, let's learn a little bit more about that. Payment processing at Crystal Clear ESL rolls everything in. So you see exactly what your student's going to pay. Now, I've calculated these the other day, so you can see that, let's just bring this down and annotate. You can see that they are in yuan and in dollars, that's US dollars. And this currency conversion was done the day before yesterday. So it does fluctuate a little bit, but the thing is, these are static. So unless there's a major shift in the currency differences, you can predict before you start any payment what your student will pay and what will pay out into your bank account. So these are two pricing options that are available to you. And this is only because the platform is entirely manual. It's not an all singing, all dancing, you know, to take in the last 18 months to put together and 50,000 pounds or dollars to put together. It's literally just me. So when I say I repurposed what I was doing, I literally did. This is the pricing option that I give my students for my freelancing. And I did think that some teachers, you know, maybe they're based in the Philippines or South Africa, or they come from a school that didn't require you to have an undergrad degree or what have you. They might be used to or be able to charge slightly less. So I do want to offer some bundle options, and I am willing to take your advice and suggestions and maybe add in one or two more options, maybe in the middle or maybe slightly higher or lower. I'm open to suggestions. So you can see for, let's talk about the 30 class bundle for the prestige pricing option. Your student pays 5,250 yuan, which equates to $810. And you know, at the end of that process, you will end up with $583 in your bank account. Great news. That accounts for, as I mentioned, access to the general curriculum, which currently has levels 1 through 4 included, but it is growing. It includes internal bank fees, so any processing fees on my end, like between the point where the money's received and the money goes out to you. It includes the currency conversion fees from yuan to US dollar. It includes the payment platform itself, so all the tech and the infrastructure there and the support. It includes insurance and legal and registrations with the FCA and so forth, and one-to-one support. So if you have questions or you're not sure what happens next, that all feeds back to me and comes out of my time. So I charge 32% on the essentials pricing and 28% on the prestige pricing. And I know it does sound like a lot, but all of this costs actually a lot of money. And besides that, you think about, you're coming from Wales or VIP Kid, where you probably made between $20 and $24 per hour, maybe slightly less or slightly more. And those platform providers were skimming, I'd say a minimum of 50% off of what the clients paid. So actually, if you look at the pricing per class, here you have per class. So I teach these in 25 minutes, but again, you're the boss. Per class, even on this 15 class bundle, the student pays 21 and you still earn 14. So that's $28 per hour. You're giving yourself a raise at the lowest pricing level, and you still have the curriculum bundled in. It's kind of a no-brainer if you look at it that way. Okay, I'm sure we'll come back to this slide with questions, and that's totally fine. A big stipulation that I have with regard to the payment portal is to have a look at the terms and conditions. I'll show you where they are. When you log into ESL-curriculum.com, you click on China payments, then you scroll all the way down to that page. And right here at the bottom is where it says terms and conditions. These specific ones are the ones for the China payment site. Okay, so I do have terms and conditions for other things on the site, but this button is specific to China payments. And the reason it's so important is it covers things like that you, the teacher, are my client. The student is your client. So I don't talk to the student. The relationship with the student is yours. And so I'll show you the process, but any troubleshooting or questions or contracts that you have with your student are yours. But that said, there is a clause in the terms and conditions that your contract needs to reflect the terms of mine. For example, I can only offer refunds for the first 2 weeks after a class bundle has been purchased. It's just protection, right? It's protection for you too, because you don't want your students to take like, I don't know, half or 2/3 of your class bundle with you and then throw a curveball in and say, I didn't really like it. I want a full refund. I mean, that's just not, it's not allowed. So make sure that you've got a contract in place with your student from the outset that informs them clearly they have the first 2 weeks to cancel. And after that, there are no refunds. They can still stop taking classes with you, but they've tried it by that point and sort of that's the end of it. There's also a $30 fee associated with refunds because it's a manual platform. So the same process that it takes for me to accept and process a payment to your bank account is taking up my time in the reverse to process it back to them. So whether that comes out of the student's balance or you want to tack on an extra $30 when you send the money back to me to send on to them, I don't mind. But I do charge an admin fee on that. So please, please, please read the terms and conditions. Make sure that you're okay with them and ask me if you have questions about them before you proceed with the process. What is the process? So the first thing that you're going to do when you hit the Crystal Clear ESL website is fill in the teacher registration form. It's a really simple form. It just asks for your basic details just because as we're in a financial arrangement, I need to be able to get a hold of you. And then from there, you're going to register each payment that a student makes using a client placement form. Let's have a little look at what that looks like. About halfway down the China Payments tab, you will see these two buttons, teacher registration form. That's the one you only do one time. And client payment placement form. This one you do have to do every time, okay? And I have had some people comment a little bit critically and say every time, but the thing is, if I have a lot of teachers using this platform, if each teacher has a lot of students using this platform, I need to make sure that I know where every bit of money has come from and where it's going to. You can imagine with large sums of money, we have to be extra careful and give everything a second look to be sure that we're doing it properly. Pardon me. So yes, every time. And that includes details like who you are, so your registration ID, who your client is, what package they're buying so that I know what value to expect, and just those sorts of things. It shouldn't take long once you get used to it, but it's vitally important that I get it because if I have a payment show up in my business account that is unaccounted for, I'm obviously going to have to refund that straight away. And then potentially you've lost your student. So nobody wants that to happen. Okay. The next thing that you do, you've done the payment placement form. You then copy a URL for the payment option that you choose. So whether that's essentials because you want to be quite budget priced, or maybe your lessons are 15 minutes long, or whether that is the prestige package because you have 2 degrees behind you, or your lessons are an hour long. You know, you're the negotiator here. You copy the relevant URL and you give that to your student. So then they log on and click a really simple button to pay by Alipay or card. And it looks like this. Okay, so this is exactly what your student will see if you share with them the ULR for the prestige pricing option. You can see it's in basic Chinese, which I've only translated roughly, but I've kept the wording very simple. They have an example of the lesson material that you have available to use. So they can even click through this and listen and do some of the tasks to get an idea. Now, this is for my flagship product, the phonics course at level 1. So as I mentioned earlier, not all of the lessons are on this great interactive, all singing, all dancing platform yet, but we lead with our best, right? You want to entice those students aboard and win them over with your winning personality and amazing teaching skills, right? They'll continue to scroll down here, and then you can see they've got their options to buy in bundles. Now, I always sell classes in bundles because not only does it take the admin time way down from processing payments more regularly, but it also makes those students take out a longer commitment because it gets cheaper for their classes the bigger bundle they buy, right? So it's an incentive to them to stay on long term. And I have never had issues selling classes in bundles, but you could encourage them to buy a smaller bundle initially if they're not sure how it'll go. But again, with regard to the refund process, I'd always sort of offer some kind of trial class arrangement before, maybe as an inclusion with a bundle, I don't know, so that you and they both get to know the makeup of your lessons before. So what curriculum you're offering, what platform you've chosen, how it works, just to make sure everybody is happy before they've made a financial commitment. So it's got the basic info, and then they literally click buy now. It brings them to a checkout page where they will scan the QR code for Alipay with their phone, and bing, bang, boom, you're done. And then within about 7 days, you get that prearranged, really transparent final payment into your US bank account. I said 7 days, but it's quite likely to be less than that. I just, on my end, it's really fast, but I can't account for how quickly your US bank account accepts those funds in. So it's better to be sort of safe than sorry. I always work to the premise that success is born of hard work and diversification. So I just wanted to leave you with the final thought that well done for trying to think outside the box, trying to go it alone. It's not easy. I've been there, and that's the reason that I really want to help. But I think separating your eggs into a multitude of baskets at this point will be a really good idea. Okay. I'm very happy now to open it up to questions. Thank you for listening to me rant on. And I'm very happy for you to unmute yourself and raise your hand, or if you are shy, just type in the chat box. Okay.
Thank you, Crystal. Thank you for explaining your business. It's very interesting, and it sounds very attractive. I'm not sure about the other teacher who's here, but I taught with Wales. And part of the reason I taught with them was because they had the Reach and the ORT lesson materials from National Geographic. And I guess one of the concerns teachers have when going private is that they don't have unlimited access to those materials anymore unless they pay a gazillion dollars to buy them all.
And big names like National Geographic too will come at a steep price, won't they?
Yeah. And that does raise a couple of questions because particularly the parents who have contacted me, and I'm sure the other Wales teachers who are all panicking right now, they are concerned about the compatibility of other materials with those, like the Reach and the ORT materials. So part of my concern is how I'm going to start with a whole new curriculum and how to place the student into your number of lessons or your levels. So would you have any quick suggestions or any advice? I mean, it's a pretty difficult question to ask, but I think we're all going to encounter that when
I think
we
that's a
change
great
over.
question. First off, Wales is one of the companies that I don't have personal experience with,
Okay.
which I do have several. So I'm not familiar with how the leveling works with Wales, but I'd love to sit down if you are quite aware of the levels with Wales and perhaps do like a comparison so we can roll that out as an information sheet to other teachers. But I think that the main way that I assess students is with a new student is I'll bring them in for a trial lesson and I'll chat with them a little bit and see sort of where their oral proficiency lies. And then I'll sort of try to match that up roughly with a level on the curriculum, give it a few slides of a go. And then because you've got this whole library of resources, they're very easy to pick through behind you. If that level doesn't suit, you just quickly, like within that very lesson, swap it out to something harder or something easier. So that's, and I think parents find that pretty impressive too, when they can see that you've got a library behind you and that you are tweaking the lesson to the needs of their child. I think it says a lot about the teacher. But that said, it is nice to have a starting point. So I am working on a diagnostic tool. It would serve as like an oral questionnaire for the student that builds up in proficiency so that when they're getting everything right, you know that they're confident at that level. And then when they start having gaps in the responses, then you think, okay, so maybe that we'll start them around here and up. Do you see what I mean? It's not there yet because as I said earlier, it's so easy. I get so many wonderful suggestions and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the best idea. But it's like, I could be skewed from my track about 50 times a day and I would get no content production done. So I'm just benching some of these things and trying to evaluate like what happened, what needs to happen now and what can sort of be benched for a while.
Yeah.
I
mean, it was a little bit of an unfair question because it was specific to Wales, I suppose, their curriculum. But like having said that, if you have a student, you can't just start every student at the very beginning in level 1. So you have to find somewhere for them that suits them and challenges them. Yeah.
I think a good starting point with Crystal Clear ESL is to have a look at the trial lessons that are there because they're pretty indicative of what is on offer in that level. And then I do also offer a 2-week free trial on the curriculum. So you would register and then you'd really be able to comb through and have a look at the lessons and sort of see for yourself, okay, this is like roughly equivalent to what I was doing here at Wales or here at Q Kids or whatever, you know, because I think it's a difficult question to answer, but it's not a bad one in that Wales had their curriculum and Magic Years had their curriculum. And I think all teachers who are coming off a contracted role and rolling students over from that will have the same question. So it's a good one.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for answering me well there. Also, it was a difficult, probably not an ideal first question. So the next question I have is with the payment method. I've never used Stripe before, and previously we were being paid with Payoneer, and I found that a very convenient way to get paid. So I was wondering whether you knew if the payments could be transferred from WePay to the Payoneer. Do you know? Or is
okay, so the Stripe really is only from the student side. So when they pay in, they use Alipay, which is powered by Stripe. So Stripe's quite a big, secure, really established and reputable payment platform, which is great because you know that you have that behind you. Your students see payment details are kept really secure. I never even see them. So and I don't have access at all. So then it comes over to me it pays out from Stripe to my business account, which is with Wise Bank. They used to go by TransferWise.
Yeah, TransferWise. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've used them for about 5 years, and they're wonderful for currency conversions. So that's the cheapest way, really, is to go bank transfer from whatever. I say American dollars because I find that most of the teachers are American. But if, for example, we're paying to Australian dollars, we could have an agreed rate, like the conversion between us, and then I would transfer those. I would convert the yuan into Australian dollars and then into your domestic bank account, if that makes sense. So it's just a cost cutting way to do it, because Stripe charges a transaction fee, but also any other platforms like Payoneer or PayPal will charge a transaction fee. So we can keep it like a domestic or a currency equivalent bank transfer. It's a cheaper way.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like that might not work the exact way I'm hoping, but yeah, I'll just have to see. It's a bit, everything's going to be an adjustment for everyone.
Yeah, this is it. And I think that's the same point for the parents. Like, I think it's important to tell the parents that you're working with, it just won't be exactly the same as what they had. That's not to say it will be worse.
Yeah.
But with regard to everything, the platform that you choose, the curriculum materials that you go with, it's going to be a bit bumpy to begin with, but ultimately the students will be better for the adaptability and the sort of wider range of learning opportunities that you're giving them.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Thank you. Yep. And my next question is about the Zoom, using Zoom. So you're 100% sure that it would work? That would work?
Yeah. So what you have to do for this is called cursor sharing. And I actually have an article and a little tutorial on my resources tab on the Crystal Clear ESL website, so you can see it all laid out. But you have to enable cursor sharing within your web portal for Zoom. So you know how you have an online account that's like your back office of Zoom, and you go in there and you, in the settings, you tick a box that says enable cursor sharing. And then when you get that annotations bar that sort of goes from the top, there'll be an extra button that says cursor sharing or share cursor. And so when you're in a lesson, you click that button, which enables it. And then when the student touches their mouse or their screen on an iPad, the cursor goes to them. And then they can, click the box or drag and drop or whatever. And when you click on your side on the mouse or the screen, it comes back to you. So it's quite an easy way to just bounce back and forth. And when you want to finish that, you just click that cursor share button again, and it turns off that ability.
Okay. Thank you. I'll be clicking really fast.
Yeah, I know. Some of them can be little monkeys. So yeah, no, that's a great option. And I haven't seen another platform outside Zoom that allows it, which is why I'm like the unofficial spokesperson for Zoom.
Actually, that was another question I had. Have you ever tried running your lessons on LearnCube? Do you think it's any better, or what do you think about LearnCube?
I haven't. So I would love to know, if you give it a go, how functional they are for you. Ultimately, you can stream these lessons on any platform that allows screen sharing. So it, it literally could be Skype, or could even bring them up on a phone, really, and do it via WeChat or WhatsApp if you must. Yeah. But
I only heard about LearnCube today. I'm not even sure if it's possible, but it looked like it had some good features. But I think they might actually have their own curriculum or something. I don't know much about it, really.
Yeah, I think they do. I think they're trying to be one of these roll it all together. But then, of course, there are more costly options. So it just depends on what monthly expenditure you would like to start with. And if the lessons that they offer suit your niche, if your teaching clientele is like preschoolers, are they going to have suitable material? So but it's definitely worth looking around and seeing what's out there, because there's quite a few up and coming platforms that offer, a different mix of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other one, Zoomoo. Have you ever used Zoomoo?
Yeah, so Zoomoo
Yeah.
is actually the Chinese version of Zoom.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's exactly the same. I started out with Chinese clients on Zoom, and I ended up moving to Zoomoo because I found it slightly more stable than Zoom, but maybe that was because the Chinese clients knew how to operate it better. Maybe it wasn't a factor inherent to the platform, but rather to the user. But my Chinese clients are really happy with Zoomoo because their interface is all in Mandarin and my side is in English. So it gives them a level of comfort, but it operates exactly the same way as Zoom. And actually, a top tip on Zoomoo is that if you're teaching group classes, it's probably an even better alternative because for whatever reason, Zoomoo includes breakout rooms in its basic or free version, whereas Zoom doesn't. It's only in the paid.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And my next question is about the number of lessons that you offer. So I did a little bit of maths, and it's somewhere around 70 to 80 lessons in total from if you started at the very start and went to the very end.
It depends
right?
what you're looking at. So there are 96 lessons per level. So level 2 is finished. Levels 1, 3, and 4 are half done. So they've got 48. And then, as I mentioned earlier, level 5 is to come, level 5 and above in the new year. So what I'll be working on and prioritizing in the autumn, early winter is finishing levels 1, 3, and 4 so that we've got that whole lower general curriculum finished and off the press and then moving on to the higher. So there's something for teachers to get their teeth into now on the lower end, and that covers from very pre A1 on the SEFA rate to about A2, early B1. So if you're looking for higher proficiency, like solid B1 and up, then please follow me because I'll be giving announcements for those launches in the coming months.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it really at the moment is aimed towards young learners.
At the moment, yeah. I mean, there is also a business English course available, and I have an IELTS course that I'm hosting. It's somebody else's content that I'm hosting for them that's coming up in September. So there are those sort of niche areas, but not yet for the sort of in-betweeners.
Yeah. And my last question, I won't ask any more after this, about, I think you recommended setting up your own website or web page. Is that right?
If you want to start a freelance business seriously and take on all the responsibility for 100% of the profits, that's really the only way to do it. Because what I was saying was you can't accept Alipay, the preferred method of payment in China, without your own website. There's not a way. You can use Stripe to invoice Chinese clients and ask them to pay by card, but unless you have a web integration, you can't access Alipay. So I recommend it? I guess I would say with how rocky things are in China, no. Because if you have the time and ability to very cheaply and easily develop a website yourself, by all means, right? But if you aren't tech savvy and you'd have to pay someone or make like a countless hours time investment, it's maybe not worth it if then China just slams the iron door next week, right? Like you've sunk all this money into accessing the Chinese market. I would say if you are going to make your own website, really work on diversifying your student body so that it's not so short-sighted as China. But if you've already got a number of students coming over from Wales or wherever else, and you don't want an investment of time or money, a platform like Crystal Clear ESLs is perfect because you're not paying for anything you're not using, right? Like the only fees associated with the payment portal are when your client pays. There's nothing residual. There's nothing, no like add-ons. It just is what it is. So you never pay money unless you make money. You see what I mean?
Yeah. I noticed that. Yeah, with the subscription, they could buy the bundles, and you take a little bit of a slice off the pie each time.
Right. So there's
And
two options, right? Like if you have
Mm.
payments sorted elsewhere, or you have maybe clients that aren't Chinese, you're perfectly welcome to subscribe to just the curriculum materials. And then that is like a monthly fee that gives you access. Whereas if your student buys a bundle of 30 classes from the portal, then that entitles you to 32 weeks of access to the same material all together, right? So like there's no extra subscription, it's that one-off fee.
All right, great. Yep. What other questions did I have? I lost my train of thought. I think that was about it. I had one more. I just lost what I was about to say.
Sorry.
It's my fault. I wrote down all these notes here. That's what it was. That's why I mentioned the website, because about starting your own website, because at Wales, that the parents could log in and they could see homework, and they could sort of get an idea of the student's progress.
Right.
Is there something like that on your site where they can upload things, or see how their student is doing, or any
Right.
assessment or anything like that?
At the moment, no. So my website is designed as quite a bare bones library rather than like a interactive platform. That's where something like what did you say, Learn Cube might come in.
LearnCube.
If they offer that capability, then it might be, and that's something you really need, then that could be worth the sort of $35 a month or whatever it is. So another thing that I want, that's on my sort of long-term to-do list, is to add in downloads. So all of my lesson material at the moment is static. You can't download it. You stream it from your own personal portal. But to offer homework downloads that you can download and email off to your student. And also, you know how with PowerPoint, you can PDF print with multiple pages, multiple slides per page? I'd love to offer a download of that, so you can download it, send it off to your client, and they either like know what's coming or are able to practice what you've done and have that to hand. But again, I mean, doing something like that's going to take hours of time away from content production, so it's not quite there yet. But that, as a freelancer, that would be something that you would probably take on individually. So for me, I keep an Excel sheet for each student by date, and I record what lesson number we've done on that day. I record the feedback that I've sent to the parents, which is usually a paragraph or so, about strengths and weaknesses. And then I also record or even hyperlink to the homework that I've provided for my student, so that I know what I'm checking up on the next class. So I think that's part of the learning curve when you transition to freelance, because a lot of that was taken care of for you when you contracted. But there are ways and means. And I would also look into TutorBird. So they don't have curriculum or the platform itself integrated, but they do offer scheduling. And I think they also might offer the homework thing that you're looking for to track all of that, and the portal to interface with your students. So it just depends, you know, what is really important to you and your students in terms of integrations, and then making the best decisions about what you choose.
Yeah, I think they might expect it now, because especially in the last 1 or 2 years, that's become a bigger and bigger part of the process. So yeah.
I mean, yes, you're right. But then if you clock it back to the reason that this policy went into place in the first place, or so they say, is to reduce the workload on kids, it might be an opportunity for you to go back to the parents and say, these are, skills-based classes that are intended as standalone, and they abide within the confinements of the policy change. So we're not having homework. Sorry.
Yeah.
I
hope they see it that way.
Yeah. No, but you're the boss, really. You can set the rules going forward. And I think the best time to do that and decide what workload you're willing to take on is now, before they're actually on board.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Thanks a lot for answering my questions. I think everyone else has run away now, but
Yeah, I know
no.
it's a funny one, but I'm going to post this so that everybody can benefit, and hopefully it's one of the choices that you guys have, and I hope that it works and helps some people out.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, it's been great. I've learned a lot from this, so I'll have to give it some thought.
Good. Okay. Well,
So,
get in touch if anything else comes to mind. You can email me at info@esl-curriculum.com, or there's a little chat icon on the website that comes directly to me as well. It was great
all right,
speaking with
great.
you, Daniel. Thanks for
Yeah,
coming.
nice to meet you, Crystal.
You
Have
too.
a good
Take
day.
care and good luck.
Bye.
Bye.